You can have your
Main event of the evening.
motorcycle humps, ready to race to you.
These days are
Hello and welcome to These Days Are Ours, a Happy Days podcast. I'm Peter.
And I'm Joe.
And today we are taking a slight chronological detour in our Garry Marshall directorial filmography journey. We are going all the way back to 1983 for the unsold pilot, Herndon.
Okay, Peter, tell us what happens in Herndon.
Over a montage of photos over the years, Shaq tells us the story of his lifelong friendship with Herndon. In high school, Shaq was the homecoming king and captain of the Van Buren Beavers. Herndon was the Beaver. Shaq went to an Ivy League school, and Herndon went to MIT.
Where some of the greatest scientific minds in our nation stole his lunch money and played keep-away with his hat.
Shaq married a Miss America finalist who ran off with the wedding photographer, then was arrested when his business partners ran off with embezzled funds. Shaq was reduced to working at an arcade, where he was found by Herndon, now a computer genius at Jodicto Computer Corporation, who hired him as his assistant. In the present day, Shaq calls a meeting of Jodicto's clients.
Mrs. Doder, when you're here, it's very hard for us to keep our minds on business.
And gives a speech extolling his boss's brilliance and plans for the future. As he does so, Herndon makes his entrance, spills a bunch of papers and then water everywhere, and knocks over several of the clients.
Awfully sorry.
When Herndon is called to explain the new products, firefighters are called in. Afterwards, Hillary Swanson, head of public relations, tells the clients to meet her outside for a tour of the plant. Shaq hits on her, and Hillary shuts him down.
You still haven't gone out with me. What gives?
Not me.
In Herndon's office, Herndon is going to go and get his mail. Shaq tells him not to. That's a job for his secretary, Miss Heidler, not Hitler.
She's very sensitive about her name.
Herndon is uncomfortable with that, and for good reason. After calling her on the intercom, she throws the mail in his face. Hillary stops by to tell them that the tour was a big success. Shaq suggests celebrating by having a sleazy affair, and Hillary calls for security. Among Herndon's mail is an invitation to his 10th anniversary high school reunion. Shaq, who has fond memories of Martin Van Buren High, is overjoyed. Herndon, who doesn't, is not.
You hated Martin Van Buren High School? It was the best time of our lives. Of your life, Shaq.
Shaq brings up Herndon's high school crush, Connie Kikorian, will probably be there, and that Herndon probably makes more money than anyone else there, so Herndon agrees to go. At the reunion, Herndon makes his entrance. Nobody is particularly happy to see him, having been hoping for Shaq.
Me, Herndon people, remember?
Laura, the woman who organized it, greets Herndon. He calls her beautiful, and the biggest compliment she can muster for him is alive. Everyone is much happier when Herndon says Shaq is right outside.
Bringing within the constant promise of joy and fulfillment in its most primitive form.
Then Herndon's old bully, Stanley Grubitowski, threatens him to get back into the old Beaver mascot costume.
Get in a suit, Herndon.
Shaq makes his big entrance to the cheers of his former classmates at the same time as Herndon, now in the Beaver costume. Shaq is called up to give a speech, but he turns over the microphone to Herndon so he can flirt with Laura. Stanley throws Herndon off stage and makes Shaq go back to talking. His former classmates ask about everything they've heard about him: buying his own sports team, involvement in a real estate deal, living in Paris. He claims to everyone that he's in the international money market, an informal diplomat.
Power struggles, crises, all the things that I do so well.
With his own line of frozen quiche. Herndon sadly watches from the sidelines until Connie approaches him. She admits to him that her excuse of why she couldn't go out with him, washing her hair, was a lie. She was dating other guys, who were handsome and had nice cars, but none of them ever treated her well. Herndon was the only guy who respected her. She escorts him to the boys' locker room and kisses him.
Boys' locker room, I sure remember this place.
Me too.
She tells him to take off the Beaver costume, while she goes to slip into something more comfortable too. Herndon, in his underwear, is then tricked into kissing a blow-up doll, while his former classmates snap a photograph. Herndon returns to the gym, humiliated and missing his pants, and chews out Shaq for lying to everyone. Shaq gets back on stage, and admits he's a fraud.
I'm just a smile and a haircut.
A divorced man who's been through 2 bankruptcy proceedings, and would be nothing without Herndon, and Herndon is setting up a scholarship fund for Van Buren students. Laura leads her former classmates in a cheer for Shaq. After the reunion is over, and Herndon has found his pants, Shaq apologizes for earlier, then demands to know why Herndon didn't say anything when Shaq was lying before. Herndon says Shaq is special and should get away with stuff like that, but Shaq says that line of thinking ruined his life. Herndon remarks that they both need to forget about high school, Shaq the good and him the bad, but Shaq adds that he's going to hang on to one thing from high school, Herndon.
Thank you, Peter. That was Herndon. It first aired back on Friday, August 26th, 1983 on ABC. It followed a rerun of Benson, which was between its 4th and 5th seasons at the time, and was scheduled to return in September.
See you in September.
In this episode, housekeeper Gretchen Krause poses as a wealthy Texan to keep a business owner from moving his company out of the state and taking a lot of jobs with him. ABC often used the 8:30 Friday night time slot as a place to air unsold pilots during the summer. Herndon was followed by a rerun of the landmark 1981 made-for-TV movie, The Best Little Girl in the World, in which Jennifer Jason Leigh portrays a teenager with an eating disorder.
It began in her mind and took control of her body. What happened to the best little girl in the world?
Charles Durning and Eva Marie Saint play her problematic parents. Meanwhile, CBS aired a rerun of The Dukes of Hazzard. That show was between its 5th and 6th seasons. It too came back in September. In this episode, Bo and Luke Duke returned to Hazard County after spending some time on the NASCAR circuit. And NBC had a preseason NFL game between the Los Angeles Raiders and the Cleveland Browns. The Browns beat the Raiders 20-17 at Cleveland Stadium. The Raiders went on to win the Super Bowl that season. And Peter, of all those things I just mentioned, did any of that appeal to you at all?
I admit that I'm kind of curious about the best little girl in the world, but also I'm torn between I'm interested in this exploration of this sensitive topic versus I wonder how melodramatic this gets.
It gets very melodramatic. I remember watching The Best Little Girl in the World in school. It was a film that was shown to school kids. So,
oh my God.
If you listen very closely during Herndon, you can actually hear a little bit of audio from the Dukes of Hazzard.
Cooter knows we do that for him. Well, that's what he meant when he said a man's got to carry his own burden.
The version that we watched, which was ripped onto YouTube, still has all of the commercials. It was honestly a lot of fun, especially the one at the very beginning that we will get into later.
Oh, yes. Herndon was directed by Garry Marshall. This was not even Gary's last unsold TV pilot. In 1989, he made Let's Get Mom, in which Carol Kane plays a mother whose 4 rambunctious sons delight in playing tricks on her. Does that sound like a good show?
That sounds very mean-spirited, unless there's some sort of twist to make it not that.
The title of the show is Let's Get Mom, so I would assume every week they're going to get mom. I don't think that sounds like a good idea for a show. Herndon was written by the team of Lowell Gans and Babalu Mandel.
We met on the street. Young writers and comedians would stand around in the driveway of the Comedy Store. This is in the 70s, and we'd just stand there and make fun of people who had jobs.
They had both been on the writing staff at Happy Days, with Lowell eventually becoming a producer on that show and Babalu becoming a script consultant. In the 1980s and 90s, Lowell and Babalu became a very successful screenwriting pair. Their movies include
Splash, Night Shift, Gung Ho, Parenthood, and Ed TV, all directed by Ron Howard.
Their other credits include
A League of Their Own, directed by Penny Marshall, Spies Like Us, Father's Day, Multiplicity, Mr. Saturday Night, and City Slickers.
They've written some comedy classics, and they've also written some terrible, terrible movies.
Yes, they have. They've written hits and very definite misses.
Peaks and valleys.
As for the music in this show, the show's theme song and background music cues are by David Wheatley, an Ontario-born musician and composer. David appeared as himself in the Happy Days episode A Touch of Classical and contributed music to such films as The Golden Child and Speed Zone. He continues to tour as a classical and jazz performer. And Peter, what did you think of the Herndon theme song?
It wasn't really much of a theme song. I think that was because there was just a lot of exposition over it. And lots of theme songs can have exposition, but this was actual talking exposition. I wanted an actual theme song. I wanted something like the Perfect Strangers theme, where it has nothing to do with the show itself, but it sounds amazing.
We also hear a cover of The Way We Were by Barbra Streisand. The song was written by Marvin Hamlisch with Marilyn and Alan Bergman for a 1973 film of the same name. It was a massive hit, reaching #1 and going platinum.
It's a very fun, ironic usage of a song. The major theme of this pilot is basically the different reactions to high school experiences. So, of course, we use this beautiful song about how nostalgia can cloud us and looking back on our lives and relationships and how we've changed out of them.
Memories like the corners of my mind.
As for our main cast members, we have to start with Michael Richards as Dr. Herndon P. Poole.
We can see that the target AC control board is hooked up directly to the log modular.
We talked about Michael's career more when we covered Garry Marshall's Young Doctors in Love. To recap, Michael is an actor and comedian from Culver City, California, best known for his work on the TV shows Fridays and Seinfeld and the movie UHF. Peter, what did you think of Michael Richards as Herndon?
I thought there was definitely a bit of an over-reliance on physical comedy. A lot of the physical comedy didn't really land for me because it didn't feel grounded in reality. In the beginning, when he's spilling stuff everywhere before he gives his presentation, that didn't strike me as something that was happening because it could conceivably happen. It struck me as something that happened because they just wrote down, do physical comedy here, and that kind of pulled me out of it. After that, I do think that Richards settled into the role very well. If Herndon is kind of an exaggerated depiction of a nerd, when he goes back to high school, he's even got the taped glasses on. I don't think that Richards overplays him too badly, and I did genuinely like how he played off of Ted McGinley as Shaq, especially because I really appreciated it when he did call out Shaq for being a liar and wallowing in his former classmates' praise while he himself gets bullied once again.
I thought there were a lot of funny and good elements to Michael Richards' performance as Herndon. I just think the physical comedy needs to be recalibrated a little. Obviously, Michael Richards is known for his physical comedy. You can see that in UHF and Seinfeld. They just went a little too heavy on it, and maybe if the show had continued, they would have been able to find that balance, but I don't think they had found it quite yet. We also have Ted McGinley as Jeffrey Shaq Shackleson.
Why don't we celebrate by having a sleazy affair?
Ted is an actor from Newport Beach, California, who was a regular on Happy Days for its final 4 seasons. Garry Marshall also gave him a part in Young Doctors in Love. Outside of his work with Garry, Ted is best known for the movie Revenge of the Nerds, plus the TV shows Married with Children, The Love Boat, and Dynasty, all of which were in their final seasons when he joined them. Peter, what did you think of Ted McGinley as Shaq?
I loved him. Ted McGinley plays smarmy beautifully well, and this is the perfect showcase for that. I did like his dynamic with Herndon a lot. He's kind of like Herndon's Lady Macbeth. No, you've got to be more confident. Don't get your mail yourself. Have your secretary get it for you. If you believe you're important, you will be important because you are important. And it teeters the line between, oh, he's being a good friend, and he's kind of vicariously living through Herndon. I appreciated that you do get the sense that, yes, he does genuinely care about Herndon. We see that with the obligatory heartwarming moment at the end, but at the same time, he is still a little bit in it for himself. And I do think it does a good job of balancing out all those elements so that he's not a complete monster, but also it's not too saccharine.
A big part of the reason why I wanted to talk about this pilot was to talk about Ted McGinley as Shaq. I think he's great in this pilot. I think he's really funny as this guy who peaked in high school and then flopped miserably as an adult and is still kind of a smarmy jerk, but as you say, also has a caring, sincere side to his personality. I would have loved to have seen how Shaq and Herndon's relationship developed over time. And also, I cannot say enough about Ted McGinley's mustache in this episode.
Yes. Oh my God, the mustache.
We also have Randy Brooks as Hillary Swanson.
Clients were so ecstatic they couldn't stop buying. Looks like Herndon did it again.
Randy, whose real name is Pam Plambeck, is a New York actress who was quite prolific in film and TV of the 1980s. Her movies include
The Man with Two Brains, Hamburger the Motion Picture, Tightrope, Terror Vision, and Looker.
Her TV credits include
Knight Rider, Murder, She Wrote, Magnum P.I., The Dukes of Hazzard, Who's the Boss, and many more.
Her last major role was as a regular on the series Mancuso FBI. After that, she concentrated on being a wife and mother and retired from acting. Peter, what did you think of Randy Brooks as Hillary in this episode?
Hillary appears in 2 scenes. Both scenes end with a joke about sexual harassment. Basically, Shaq has apparently been hounding her to go out with him for the entire month that he's been working there, and every time she calls security on him. It's kind of interesting to contextualize that within the history of sexual harassment being recognized as a problem in the 1980s.
We're talking about sexual harassment here.
I don't know if it's necessarily funny, but it does feel like Shaq in those cases is the butt of the joke. That does help a lot. It would be worse the other way around, but in this case it's like, yes, Shaq is an entitled douchebag, and he is bringing this on himself.
I also like the way that Hillary would constantly shut down Shaq and his advances. I wonder how this would have played out in the long run. Were they going to try to do a Sam and Diane kind of dynamic between Shaq and Hillary? I don't know.
Ooh, yeah.
That could have happened. We briefly hear Ann Ramsey as the voice of Miss Heitler. Ann was a character actress from Omaha, Nebraska. She started working in film and television in the early 1970s, but her career didn't really take off until the 1980s when her roles in The Goonies and Throw Mama from the Train made her famous.
The night was sultry.
Unfortunately, by that point, years of smoking had caught up with Anne, and she died of throat cancer in 1988. Presumably, if this had gone to series, Ann Ramsey would have been part of it, but we only get a few seconds. I don't think I would have even recognized Ann Ramsey's voice from what we hear. Would you?
Yeah, I wouldn't have recognized it either. It's a small, funny moment, but also it kind of hinges on her not being seen. A scary off-screen secretary is amusing, but also maybe not feasible week to week.
At the reunion, we have a couple of people worth talking about. I'll start with Marla Pennington as Laura.
You're still alive?
Marla is a Los Angeles actress who guested twice on Happy Days as Fonzie's girlfriend Cynthia. She's best known for playing the mom on Small Wonder. Peter, did Marla as Laura make any impression on you?
She has some magnificent 80s hair. There is so much hairspray in there.
That hairdo is a real engineering feat of the 1980s. I want to mention Tony Longo as Stanley Grubitowski.
It's interesting work. That sounds great, Herndon.
Tony was a New Jersey-born actor who worked extensively in TV and film from the early 1980s to the mid-2010s, often playing gangsters and tough guys. You can see him in movies like
Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Mulholland Drive, 21 Jump Street, Splash, 16 Candles, and many more.
His TV credits include
Laverne and Shirley, The Facts of Life, The Equalizer, 6 Feet Under, and too many more to list.
He died of heart failure in 2015 at the age of only 53. Did you have any feelings about Tony Longo as Stanley Grubitowski?
I laughed very hard at him threateningly holding out two of his fingers to Herndon, which is a callback to Herndon saying that Stanley used to hold him up by the nostrils.
I'm gonna booger hook you back to Frisco.
That was great.
I feel like this is the kind of part Tony Longo played over and over again in his career. That's what you hired him to do, and he's pretty good here as this big, strong meathead.
I was interested by the detail that he threw Herndon off the stage specifically so that Shaq could keep talking. It does raise some interesting questions about Herndon and Shaq's relationship, because the implication is kind of like that they were friendly in high school. They were close enough that Herndon brought Shaq on as his assistant, but at the same time, Herndon was going through some horrific bullying at the time. Shaq apparently didn't do anything to stop it, and even now he's kind of not doing anything to stop it, even though maybe Stanley would listen to him if he said, hey, knock it off. Although, if Stanley is so devoted to the bully life that even as an adult who has bills to pay, maybe he can't be stopped. He's too dedicated.
He's in it for life, Peter, because it's all he knows. And last but not least, we have Robin Riker as Connie Kokorian.
When you were calling me all those years, I wasn't washing my hair.
Robin is an extremely busy New York actress with dozens of film and TV credits from the mid-1970s to the present day. Her longest-running role was as Kelly on the cable series Brothers, but she was also a regular on
Get a Life, Thunder Alley, The Gregory Hines Show, and Mood Swings.
So you could have seen Robin guesting on such shows as
NCIS, Bones, 6 Feet Under, Justified, Malcolm in the Middle,
Boston Legal, MASH, You're the Worst, and literally dozens more.
Peter, what did you think of Robin Riker as Connie Kokorian?
Connie's big thing is that she basically plays the bait in this cruel prank on Herndon. I was a little bit fooled for a couple of minutes. At first I thought, oh, that's nice. Something nice is going to happen to Herndon. And then it becomes obvious, okay, she's luring him into the boys' locker room with the promise of sex. So this is definitely a trick. The alternative would have been that they were going to have sex in the boys' locker room. Why would you do that? There's nowhere that's comfortable. It smells. Don't do that.
The best thing about Robin Riker's performance is that I, too, was almost fooled for a few seconds when Connie starts coming on to Herndon. I thought, oh, maybe something's going to happen for Herndon? And obviously, no, she's setting up a prank. I should have known that because this is so similar to what happens in several horror movies.
It's very Garry.
Yeah. As for cultural and historical references, the surviving copy of Herndon was taped off of a Los Angeles TV station called KABC and includes an ad for the legendary used car dealer Cal Worthington.
Here's Cal Worthington and his dog Spot.
Cal died in 2013, and the last of his dealerships closed in 2023. He was famous for his commercials, in which he would pose with exotic animals, all of which he would refer to as his dog Spot. His jingle, Go See Cal, was known to generations of viewers.
Go see Cal, go see Cal, go see Cal.
I was not familiar with Cal Worthington, really, until seeing this episode. Had you ever heard of him, even?
I had not, no. But I feel like I've seen a lot of car dealership commercial parodies where the joke is that here's this guy doing lots of goofy stuff to get your attention, and he's promising to sell his cars for low prices. I had never actually seen one of those until now, and I am so glad that I did. Also, the commercial is about 2 minutes and 40 seconds long. That is a little bit over 10% of the entire runtime of this video.
The Cal Worthington commercial goes on forever and ever. I think he starts listing every single car and every single price of everything on the lot, it feels like. I'm just now remembering that there's a full-on Cal Worthington parody in UHF.
If nobody comes down and buys a car from me in the next hour, I'm gonna club this baby seal! That's right! I'm gonna club his seal to make a better deal!
Other commercials include Sandy Duncan for Wheat Thins, with Jason Alexander as a baker standing behind her, Victoria Principal for Germac hair coloring, Sprite, Sears paint, and the TV show Lottery with Ben Murphy. Did any of those commercials stand out to you?
The Sandy Duncan commercial was pretty delightful, and it did kind of make me want Wheat Thins. So, mission accomplished. Watching old commercials is always a double-edged sword. On the one hand, I feel like I'm subverting capitalism by watching stuff for products that no longer exist. But on the other hand, I'm still being entertained by capitalism.
A lot of times the best way to judge culture is by the ephemera, the stuff that was meant to be thrown away. I think that oftentimes says a lot about the times in which shows were made. These ads are a very good snapshot of 1983 values and culture. Herndon and Shaq went to Martin Van Buren High School. We know from Happy Days that Garry Marshall likes high schools named after presidents, but the 8th president of the United States only has one high school named for him. Aww. And it's in Queens. The exterior we see later in this episode is very obviously the same building on the Paramount lot that stood in for Jefferson High on Happy Days, with those very distinct arches. I believe that is an executive building on the Paramount lot, and the Brady Bunch went to school there too. Shaq's business partners absconded with the money to Guatemala, presumably because they believe Guatemala has no extradition treaty with the United States, but it's actually Bolivia and Ecuador that have no extradition. Guatemala, on the other hand, can and will extradite suspected criminals to the United States. So if you're running off with money, do not run off to Guatemala.
I can't afford to go back to Guatemala.
If that's what you were planning to do, to run off with all the funds in the These Days Are Ours, a Happy Days podcast coffers,
good to know.
At the video arcade, only one game is really identifiable, Frogger. This is the classic 1981 arcade game developed by Konami and released by Sega. The object of the game is to manipulate a frog across roads and rivers while dodging various obstacles. It's one of the most popular and successful video games of all time, with millions of sales and numerous sequels and spin-offs. It even got its own short-lived animated series as part of the CBS Saturday Supercade in 1983. I was just thinking about how, unlike Pac-Man and Mario and Donkey Kong, the frog from Frogger didn't really have much of a career outside of his game. There's not a lot of merch for him. I don't even know if he has a name. Frogger needed to have a better agent, I think.
He really did, yeah.
The building that serves as the headquarters of the Jodicto Computer Corporation is actually the Sunkist building in Sherman Oaks, California.
Sun-kissed feeling is in the air.
The building was originally designed in 1971 and is considered one of the crown jewels of San Fernando Valley architecture. Sunkist has moved its headquarters a few times since then, but the original building is still standing and is currently being redeveloped as a mixed-use center called Citrus Commons.
I had no idea it was the Sunkist building. That's amazing.
Herndon compares himself to Heathcliff.
Heathcliff, no one should terrify their neighborhood.
The tortured protagonist of Emily Bronte's 1847 novel Wuthering Heights. I'm not sure Heathcliff is an aspirational figure, though, since his total lifelong obsession with a woman causes misery for himself and others. He might be thinking of the more romanticized version of Heathcliff played by Laurence Olivier in the film adaptation of the novel. It's difficult to judge this scene because this is part of the Herndon episode that did not record particularly well.
Halfway through the video, when Shaq and Herndon are talking in the office, it kind of devolves into just static, and it's very hard to make out anything that they are saying or doing. Fortunately, it does get better when they get to the high school reunion.
At the reunion, Shaq says, "I guess real men do eat quiche," which leads to a lot of quiche jokes.
I don't even like quiche.
Quiche is a traditional French pastry containing eggs and cheese. It started becoming trendy in America circa the 1960s, but we quickly ruined it, and the dish gained a notorious reputation for being pretentious and unmanly. By the 1980s, quiche was an easy punchline. Satirist Bruce Firestein wrote a humorous book called Real Men Don't Eat Quiche in 1982. Culinary writer James Peterson, who loved genuine French quiche, admitted that Firestein's book was the death knell for quiche in America. Peter, have you ever actually had quiche?
Growing up, my mother made them sometimes. I don't get all the jokes. It's pie but savory. Free yourself from your shackles and eat some quiche. It's delicious.
I have never understood the hostility towards quiche or why Bruce Firestein wrote a book about it. I actually did read that book in college. I don't think it's all that funny. The weirdest thing is that was what made Bruce Firestein famous, but he went on to write a bunch of James Bond movies after killing off quiche.
My earliest memory of James Bond is sitting in the back of a 1960 Chevy Impala at a drive-in movie in Livingston, New Jersey, that my parents had taken my sister and I to see Goldfinger.
It's funny because I feel like James Bond would be the kind of guy to eat quiche.
James Bond definitely knows his way around quiche. But I think this is a little microcosm of our conflicting feelings toward France as a country. Some people think it's the height of taste and sophistication, and others see it as a country of sissified snobs. We have some deeply conflicted feelings about France.
What's your least favorite country? Italy or France?
France.
Nobody ever says Italy.
Shaq says the highlight of his day at the arcade was waiting for some kid to hit the bonus game on Donkey Kong. The arcade version of Donkey Kong, published by Nintendo in 1981, did not actually have a bonus stage, but you could get a bonus life at 7,000 points. And Shaq says you can go home again, to which Herndon replies, "You read Thomas Wolfe?" We've talked about this classic 1940 novel before. It's about a writer who upsets the people in his hometown by writing a novel that they think defames them. By the time You Can't Go Home Again came out, Wolfe had already died of tuberculosis. Peter, were there any outstanding fashions in Herndon?
I loved Laura's sparkly purple dress. It's a very 70s, 80s outfit, and yet somehow it is also timeless.
I think the most distinctive outfit in all of Herndon is Herndon's ill-fitting suit that he wears. He reminded me a lot of Jack Nance in Eraserhead, possibly because they have the same hairdo and they have the same social awkwardness.
Do I just cut them up like regular chickens?
Sure, just cut them up like regular chickens.
Herndon seems to have a lot of money, so you'd think he could buy some better clothes.
That is a recurring thing in his relationship with Shaq. Shaq is urging him to be more confident and not do everything himself, so the suits make thematic sense.
Perhaps over the course of the series, as Herndon gained more confidence, he could wear clothes that actually fit him and look nice on him.
I guess we'll never know.
Peter, did you have any other observations that you wanted to make about Herndon?
In high school reunions and TV, it always turns into people reverting into their teenage selves, even though they really shouldn't. Everyone is very obsessed with high school in these situations. There's always a bully who still wants to torment our protagonist, even though when you're both adults, that's called assault, and that's illegal. There's an episode of Baywatch where the same thing happens, where Mitch Buchanan goes to his high school reunion and he beats up his old bully, and then he gets on stage and he sings "Do You Love Me?"
For many people, high school looms large in their consciousness, and that does not change as they get older. There is something very bittersweet about a high school reunion. Peter, I will ask that age-old timeless question. Was this pilot any good?
It was. It was a fun half hour. I'm not super torn up about the fact that it never got picked up for series, but I think that if it had, it would have been a reasonably fun show. Maybe it would have run for a season or two. Maybe it would be fondly remembered. Who knows?
I think this would have been a fondly remembered cult classic, possibly in some circles, but I don't think it was ever going to be a huge hit. What's kind of interesting here is that it would have been one of the first sitcoms, maybe the first, to be set in the tech industry. I don't know that Lowell Gans and Babaloo Mandel actually know anything about computers or how computers work. I don't think any of the computer jargon that we hear in this episode is accurate. Maybe they would have had to learn how the actual tech industry works for the show. Now we've had shows like Silicon Valley, and people know all about tech geniuses and the computer world much more so than they did in 1983.
Possibly too much. I feel like we could all stand to know less about tech geniuses. I'm putting air quotes around that.
Most of the big tech geniuses turned out to be jerks. So, yeah, I wish we did know less about them. Herndon actually seems like a pretty nice guy. I don't see him turning into a Musk or a Zuckerberg.
Herndon feels way more in the vein of the traditional TV nerd. I guess a lot of TV nerds are also creeps, but he seems okay. When we learn about his high school crush on Connie, he mentions that he asked her out a lot, but it doesn't seem to have escalated into stalking her, like, say, Urkel.
No, he's much less aggressive than Urkel.
I feel like Urkel would become a Musk.
All in all, I thought Herndon was a neat little discovery.
Also, it gives us a break from the trilogy of terror that we are in the middle of in Garry Marshall's filmography.
Garry hit a real rough patch in his filmography in the 1990s, and I needed a little bit of a reprieve. So, Peter, how can people keep up with us and find out about all the wonderful things we are doing?
Listeners can follow us on Libsyn at thesedaysAreours.libsyn.com.
And they can email us with questions, comments, and concerns at thesedaysarepodcast@gmail.com. So, Peter, tell us what we have on the docket next time we get together.
Next time, we are watching a 1990s Hollywood film about people with learning disabilities. It's called The Other Sister.
You really are the other sister.
And it sounds atrocious.
I think this is going to be a very difficult show for me, but we'll see. So, see you later, alligator.
In a while, crocodile.
Froggy
He takes one step at a time. The way that he moves has no reason or rhyme. He hops and jumps, dodges and ducks, cars and buses,